This is the spiritual samurai scribe, and this video is part of a series that I created last evening titled "By Some Spiritually Gifted People, Abort Mission." And this is going to be part 2 to that series, where we're going to be discussing the dreamer who got his spirit broken. Now, in part 1 of the video right before this one, I talked about a lot of different things. I would check that video out, but I did address 3 gentlemen, particularly 2. 2 of them, these were real people that actually off themselves, and they were both spiritual people. And so I'm going to, in this video, we're going to talk about one of them that I mentioned, who is he's the dreamer. So this is basically, I'm inspired by them to create the archetype of what they represent. Each gentleman represented a certain archetype, and they also specialized, they had their own gifts. They specialized in different things, So this one in particular is the dreamer. You know, he had a lot of divine dreams and stuff like that. He had his own testimonies. His purpose was trying to help a lot of young people, particularly young men, to, you know, that have been through the same things that he's been through. He had a very traumatic childhood. You know, he's been through a lot. So this person was very spiritually exhausted, and I can definitely say that for sure. So, you know, I would advise to check the first video out. You know, part 1, I bring up, that's when I first bring up these gentlemen. I didn't go into too much detail, you know, because I wanted to focus mainly on the movie Fallen, the movie that's played by Denzel Washington. That movie, I was mainly focusing on talking about that and connecting it to how, you know, the mystery behind all these things, the spiritual stuff. I mean, just check the video out, you know. But anyway, there's a lot of spiritually gifted people out here that are losing hope. They're losing themselves. I mean, they're losing their minds. And it can get very exhausting being in this world and with little to no support, especially if you're by yourself. And going through the isolation phase, on top of gang stalking, on top of all the spiritual warfare that comes with that, on top of losing your job, losing your everything, and also being heartbroken on top of that, and on top of the wounds from childhood. That is a lot to carry. I make this video out of respect and love for a lot of you guys out there that can definitely resonate with this and can definitely learn from this, so that you don't end up falling by your own sword, because that's really the main purpose, is to prevent spiritually gifted souls from giving up, is to prevent you guys from even considering doing, you know, suffering the same fate that they did. You know, we don't want this to happen, and this happens a lot. And so when we create a strong community of like-minded people who understand all these things and can validate each other's experiences, we can definitely make a huge impact in a positive way, because we have a purpose and it needs to be fulfilled. And offing yourself is not the solution, because now you're going to, that same cycle is going to be repeated one way or another, whether you believe in reincarnation or maybe you don't. Now, that remains a mystery, because we don't know that for sure, but we do know that whenever a task is not completed, it creates a ripple effect, and now somebody's got to pick up that mission, and they have to do, you know, what they, you know. But again, I understand the exhaustion behind it. It's not easy. So with that being said, let's discuss the dreamer. The dreamer who got his spirit broken. Think about how much pain a person has to go through. So go from being the dreamer to having your spirit broken because of all types of experiences, right? So this individual has suffered a lot. He has a lot of trauma. And but the one thing that I want to point out some things so that we can think about this and learn from this, and also is one of the biggest sources of his exhaustion is childhood trauma, and which included a lot of, man, it was a lot from all types. Is from SA, physical abuse, narcissistic abuse, psychological, and also having a mother wound, which is, this is key here. This person had a mother wound. The mother wound is a very painful thing that a lot of men go through, you know, and I can understand that because I have my own wounds for myself. It may not be a mother wound, but it's something very similar. It's just the other way around, you know. But I understand, you know, the mother wound, and I'm gonna make a video about that actually. In another video, I'm gonna talk about that. But the mother wound is something that it opens a lot of problems within a man, and that can really affect a lot of aspects of your life, to where women become a distraction all the time. You're unable to have a relationship with a woman, not because you don't love them, but because you get distracted too much, or you get fixated on one particular individual. And it just so happens that that particular individual just had to be a female covert narcissist. And because why, like I said in another video, in the empathy trap, right, the female covert narcissist, they know how to capture a man's heart, especially when they know that you have a mother wound. This is why you must not, I'm gonna tell you what my spirit told me back in college when I met an individual. This voice was so loud, and I'm gonna tell you exactly what that voice told me, and that is, do not talk about your traumas. Whatever you do, do not talk about your traumas. And that literally came to my mind when I met somebody for the first time, you know. And I looking back at it now, I understand that, because there's a connection between this individual and, you know, a particular wound that I have. And so I understand it's very similar to the mother wound. So yeah, but the mother wound, this is one of the biggest things that this person suffered from. Now, what happened in the situation is that he got framed, you know, and he got framed at a job that he was working in. What did they frame him for? They allegedly claimed that he was selling some substances in the job. He said he that was a lie, you know, and I could feel that he's telling the truth, of course. I could sense it. He said, I wasn't doing it, but I might as well. And see, he was so frustrated because he has spent most of his life living a clean life, staying away from trouble, despite the fact that he came from a hopeless place, and he just lived righteously, you know, the narrow path, everything. He did what he did the best he could, man, to remain solid. And for something like that to happen, to be falsely accused of a crime, you know, selling substances while on the job. And then he said, I was better off just doing that, because since they're going to frame me for that, just to continue to struggle financially, because you want to do things the right way. You don't want to do nothing illegal. But the fact that they accused him of something illegal, he felt like his spirit was broken. I mean, it was so like, it was just like, that will break any man down, you know. And then if you keep running into that same pattern of getting fired from a job, or them pushing you to quit because of the type of light that you carry, and also it's just something about your presence. And I think given that these were gentlemen, right, there's a different layer of struggle and difficulty that they're facing that, you know, that needs to be addressed and acknowledged. And that is the fact that as a man, you know, from my understanding, men they're put under more pressure to provide. And so when a man is unable to provide, society will really look down on you so much. And you might think, well, that's how it should be, because a man should provide. And you're right, a man should provide. I get that part. But when we're talking about this broken, divided states, as well as the gang stalking that takes place, as well as the fact that all these gentlemen that we're discussing were spiritually gifted, righteous men. They escaped the hopeless place so that they could live a better life. They have done everything in their power to do the right thing, and yet and still somehow they get caught up with some bullshit like that. Now, how am I so confident that he's telling the truth? For one, I can read energy, and two, he reminds me of somebody. He reminds me of a certain individual that I knew personally, that I used to work with a long time ago. And this person, I heard from somebody that told me that he got fired, wrongfully fired. I'm like, why did he get fired? And she told me they accused him of substances. And I was like, how? How did they? And then she said they had no evidence. She herself knew that it was a false accusation. She was telling me it didn't sound right, for one, and two, there was no evidence, no proof. They just fired him on the spot. And he was a manager too, so this position that he was working in, it meant a lot to him. It meant a lot to him because once upon a time he struggled with maintaining employment, and so when he found this opportunity and he grew within, he became manager. So it's like, yeah, he was good, he was doing good, and I could attest that he was a solid person, at least to work with, never had any problems with him, and everybody got along with him pretty well. So he was a fair leader. But she told me they falsely accused him of, it was either selling or smoke, or doing the substance, one or the other. But anyway, still, nonetheless, they accused him of doing something illegal, dealing with a certain type of substance. And she said that was a lie because, for one, we never saw the substance. There was no proof that he had that substance. They just made that up, and just to fire him, because it's not a coincidence that they fired him like that, just like that, on the spot, no warning, nothing. She told me that he left that place just crying. And you know how it is with men, they don't like crying in front of people. And we've never seen him, well, she's never seen him in that state, and she said she couldn't believe it. And this is crazy because this happened, I think I already left that job. I already left there. But after I left, and after he was wrongfully terminated, all of a sudden some crazy stuff started happening in that place. And I find that to be interesting, that once I left and once they did him like that, all of a sudden there was just chaos in that place. So that was interesting. But I feel for the guy. So that's how I know. And me and, the girl that told me this, we were both in agreement that there's something off here. There's something very off, because we know that person's character. So you can't lie to people, like, especially when you can read energy. Yeah, no, no, So it goes back to the fact that these men, the righteous men, are being targeted, man. And they're banking on the fact that no one will believe you. But going back to the dreamer, right? So when I think about his situation, I think about the situation I just told you about the person that I actually worked with a long time ago. And then it clicked in my mind. The amount of sadness that she described to me that he was displaying, he didn't even care who was watching. He was destroyed. He was like, so like, he was just, you can tell his spirit was broken, because, employment or any type, that's part of your livelihood. Having employment is tied to your livelihood, and when that's cut off just like that, especially with a lie, somebody made up a lie, somebody did this just came to my mind. I do recall going back to that person that I used to work with that was wrongfully terminated. I remember he said this to me. He said, and I'll never forget this, but this is something along the lines, he said, somebody told me that some people have the power to blacklist people from employment. Some people can be so petty that you piss off the wrong person, or if they just simply don't like you, they could find ways to prevent you from being able to find another job. And they could make it really hard and inconvenient for you to do so. Not because you did anything wrong, but because they simply hate you. And they want to make sure that you never grow or elevate. They want to basically keep you from excelling. And sometimes they could lie about certain things, and then they could, once they, you could get fired from one place, that person could know somebody, they could have connections, and then you try to look for a job somewhere else, and you find out that you can't find one because they basically blacklisted you, and they contact those other places to prevent you from being able to find employment, and that's how they keep you in that position. That's what he told me. The fact that he told me that, normally people don't talk about this stuff. People don't know about what it means to be blacklisted, but that is a real thing. That is what targeted people go through. And I'm talking, the targeted people that I'm referring to are the righteous people that have been targeted by this world. And the fact that he told me this, he told me this one day, and I was just like, I just listened to him, and I'm like, I understand what you're saying, I do recall seeing a book on his desk one day when I had to I had to clock in, and I remember seeing he had a book about spiritual warfare, and I figured, oh, so this man knows some stuff about the spiritual realm and stuff like that. So I put all that together, right, combining the person that I used to work with along with the dreamer that we're discussing. These two men, their stories overlap a lot. And so what we can come up with is the fact that, injustices happen a lot. And I think it's important to highlight these stories because this could save someone's life. Because when you break a man's spirit like that by not only wrongfully terminating him, but also blacklisting him from any future opportunities, that pushes him to do, the very thing that they accused him of doing, which is, and I'm not making excuses, but when you understand the reality of what gang stalking is, it actually can push a righteous man to do things that you might think is out of his character in regards to, selling certain stuff, and this may not apply to all of them because, as you could see, they did not actually engage in that. Instead they became so exhausted by being falsely accused and by being targeted on the job and all that stuff, and the gang stalking and all that stuff, it got to a point where they just decided to just off themselves because they don't want to get into. I firmly believe that maybe they were hitting that threshold of like giving up on doing things the right way. So I'm not sure if they were trying to put them in jail, because when you're accused of something like that, normally that means you're going to have some jail time behind it. So as far as the dreamer, I don't know what happened because I know he ended up offing himself. So maybe he offed himself so that he wouldn't be going in there. I don't know too much about that part, because he's not with us anymore. And as far as the person that I used to work with, I don't know what happened with him. I have no idea. So not sure if he did time or anything, but that would be fucked up because there's no proof. How you gonna put a man in jail for supposedly selling some stuff that you have where's the stuff at? There's no evidence of the stuff because there was no stuff. And like I said in the previous video, they can tamper with evidence. Who's in control of that? Think about it. It's fucked up. That's the type of world we live in, unfortunately. And I think that when we shed a light to these things, not only it actually restores individuals that have been through that. It restores their dignity and also the truth, the actual truth of what happened. And when a man goes through that kind of thing over and over, he thinks, I can only imagine what the dreamer was thinking about. He was probably thinking about all of these burdens that he carried from childhood traumas, the mother wound, still being, working hard to be good husband and father, and then losing everything, even the burdens become even heavier, because not only do you have the burdens of childhood traumas, the mother wound, trying to live righteously. You know, you come from a hopeless place, but you decided to create a better life. You create a family, and then all of a sudden you get accused of something like that, and then the people around you, they don't know what the hell's going on, and of course they can't really articulate it the way that I am in this video right now, or even understand or comprehend how the hell you got into that point. If anything, most people would look at him and think, oh yeah, he would be doing that. Most people would be thinking like, oh yeah, he would be doing that. Of course he would. You know. There's no empathy. There's no empathy for these gentlemen. You know, and we understand why. But that's why I think that these type of stories and what they represent is important to shed. It's important to shed a light on these type of stories, so that there's people out there that have gone through this, and when they hear this, they're like, okay, yeah, that resonates deeply. And you know you're not crazy, and you know that somebody out there understands what happened to you, because injustices need to be exposed, and we need to bring relief to the last righteous men standing, and just righteous men and women, period. You know, we have to look after each other, and we have to help each other out, because it's getting really crazy out here. I mean, and nothing is new under the sun, right? Like it says in the book. But I mean, this stuff is intense when you're faced with this type of stuff, you know, and understanding what happened and showing that you understand what this means can bring a lot of relief to a lot of people. And that's what I'm here to do, is to contemplate deeply about this, and then articulate it in the best way that I can by connecting all these dots, right? As you can see, I connected the stories of two gentlemen that are very similar to each other, and then I was able to put it together, and like there's something going on here. There's a pattern, and what is it? It's basically being targeted wrongfully. Yes, there are people who are wrongfully targeted because of what they represent spiritually, and I would even say it's not just ethnically, but even spiritually as well, because they have both. And you know, they can't, like I said, they just can't have these men doing well for because of the purpose that they carry. And unfortunately, they're trying to, basically the goal of the enemy is to try to capture you before you wake up to who you are and what you can do. And I got a feeling that they probably had somewhat of an idea of the path and the direction where they need to go, but they got lost somewhere down there, and the enemy got to them, you know, before they could wake up. At least for the dreamer, right? The dreamer was, unfortunately, they got to the dreamer before he could truly wake up to his power. So he was aware of his purpose. He was aware of his spiritual gifts. However, there's so much to learn, and there's so much to uncover. And there's a lot of healing work that he needed to do as well, because he was really suffering from the mother wound. And so you put all that together, and you're like, there was a lot of work that he had left to do. But because of that, those losses that he experienced, and on top of all the heavy burdens added on him, it was just too much. And even a strong person like him, he broke, and his spirit was broken. And and on top of not just the gang stalking in the workplace, but I believe he was gang stalked in his platform as well, because he was sharing a lot of things. And me personally, I think some of the stuff might have been oversharing just a little bit, because again, be mindful of what you share, because you got to make sure that you have thoroughly healed from certain wounds before you talk about it. Because, you know, somebody might leave a stupid comment. Somebody, you know, there's gang stalkers and bots on the comments, and they'll try to mess you up a little bit, or they'll try to accuse you of this, accuse you of lying and all this stuff. You got to understand there's a lot of accuser spirits on there, and that's why sometimes I can get hardcore with my delivery, because I don't play that. Because ain't no deceptive spirit or no accuser spirit is going to sit here and tell me anything, because I already know, and I can see and I can detect it, and we're going to basically dissect it and kick them the fuck out of my channel. I don't play that. I don't play when I have these accusing spirits, deceptive spirits, any type of spirit that is demonic, all these demonic spirits, right? Or it could just be bots, whatever you want to call it, right? I don't play that shit because I'm on a mission to save lives the best that I can by shedding a light on all these things and articulating and making connections between all these things so we could prevent our spiritual brethren from going through that same fate, because we don't want that. We don't want you guys to fall on your own sword. Trying to prevent that here. And that's what the mission is about, so that you can actually enjoy life. Not just enjoy life, but it's not about the pleasures of the world. It's about feeling joy and being able to heal from your traumas and being able to, you know, defeat this program that was meant to break you down. Because the gang stalking program is intended to break down spiritually gifted people, righteous people. We have to learn as much as we can and support each other the best that we can. And that is important, and that's what's going to keep us alive, because we will be alive. We're not going to do what Detective Hobbs did in the end. We're not going to self-destruct. You know, we are going to remain strong. You know, our work will not be in vain, but it becomes in vain the moment that you decide to fall by your own sword. And you don't want that to happen. Rest in peace to all the souls that left the earth for the same reasons as the dreamer did. Because there's a lot of them out there that match that same description and story and testimony. You know, and if you resonate with that, with the dreamer, I hope that you gain some value from this video. Take really good care of yourself. I'm going to be addressing the second gentleman from part 1. It's going to be titled The Songwriter, and that's going to be the next part to this series. So I thank you so much for listening. Take care and God bless.